What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Did y'all see that? What?
Let's just throw Scream 6 in there for like
It was good.
movie. It was really good. The best of the franchise, in my opinion, since the first one.
Yeah. We're living in a wild world right now where the Jonas Brothers are back with Disney. Sony's live-action villain Spider-Verse might be on the brink of disaster if they'll ever come back from it. And then, of course, Spike Lee is diving into Netflix with a Hurricane Katrina documentary. All this madness and more on Inside the Crazy Ant Farm. Dustin, how are you feeling about all of this craziness?
Well, I'm feeling a little insecure. That's how I'm feeling. One, okay, the Joe Bros back at Disney. It kind of makes sense. They're seeing a little resurgence, right? They've gotten back together. They got a new album. It's all good stuff. Sony's live action villain Spider-Verse stuff collapsing. Not surprised. I think I just saw the numbers today, literally, as we were getting ready to record the show. Craven ended its box office run worldwide, global total, $56 million.
Yeah.
Not good. And then, of course, Katrina, that's going to bring up a lot. We're going to dive into that because I did see what he's going to be talking about, and he kind of goes in the right direction, but then kind of still ignores some stuff. So I feel edgy about that one, too. And right before we started recording, there was some breaking news that hit that could... How am I feeling about this one, my friend? Very upset because it could mess with my box office draft. Apparently there's a lawsuit coming hard and steady at Warner Brothers Discovery about the new Superman movie. If successful, it would definitely mess up my draft. So I'm feeling a little not so good about that, but we'll see. They've been successful in court fighting off these lawsuits before, so we'll see. Anyway.
Craziness, man. It's crazy. Like we said, oh my goodness. Well, super excited to dive into all of that. So might as well get into it. Hello, everyone. So you want to start a podcast but have no idea where to start? Well, Crazy Ant Media is here to help you. We want to assist you finding your VFE. What's VFE, you ask? Well, that is your voice, your format, and your equipment. These are the 3 biggest essentials you need to start your podcast. All those hours watching non-stop YouTube videos or all those random website links, those are done. Just hop on a Zoom call with us and we'll talk about everything you need to know to create your own podcast and find your voice. Plus, we will send you home with a 12-page packet over everything we just discussed. Is very in-depth. It is definitely a must-need while trying to start your first podcast. Contact us at info@crazyantmedia.com today so that you can start finding your podcast voice for tomorrow. What's up, guys? Oh my goodness, 283. Here we are, and you guys know your host with the most. Myself, J. Logan Austin, aka J-Lo Fantastic. And then, of course, my co-host, the lovely, the one and only, Dustin and Bergman, aka The Mouth.
Yes, what's up?
Man, oh man, it's going to be a great freaking show this week. We're super excited about it. But before we dive into everything, be sure to leave a rating on this podcast. Comment below and tell us what you actually think about this show, because leaving a rating actually helps this show get seen by more people who enjoy entertainment news, but especially those who are trying to break into the entertainment industry. Us here at Crazy Ant Media are all about lending the helping hand to anyone, a writer, actor, director, anyone who is trying to break into the entertainment industry. This is your one-stop shop show to where you'll be updated with everything that's going on in Los Angeles, the entertainment industry, all of it, man. We have it right here for you at ITCAFpodcast. And we're super excited about this week. But one more piece of business before we dive in. Of course, be sure to head over to our website, www.crazyantmedia.com, where you can start rocking the latest and greatest Crazy Ant Media gear. We got a little bit of something for a little bit of everyone. Please be sure to check that out. Any way that you support us on social media, by liking, listening to podcasts, anything that you do to support us here at Crazy Ant Media, we want to say thank you. So we appreciate everything that you guys do. We wouldn't be able to do any of this without any of you. So we definitely always want to shout you out and to give you thanks where thanks is due. But of course, we're starting with the juggernaut Disney, and there's a kind of reunion happening at Disney this week. The Jonas Brothers are reuniting with the Mouse House to produce and star in a Christmas comedy film. Now, this is slated for the 2025 holiday season, so coming up. Now, in this film, it has the working title of Jonas Brothers Christmas Movie. Wow, very elaborate, guys.
Very original,
elaborate.
very original.
But of course, Kevin Jonas, Joe Jonas, Nick Jonas face a series of escalating obstacles as they struggle to make it from London to New York in time to spend with their families. And then, of course, Chloe Bennet will join the trio in this film. Now, her character, Lucy, is a cardiothoracic surgeon and a childhood friend of Joe's. Now, sparks fly when they bump into each other at the airport. The Jonas Brothers, of course, have had a long history with the Mouse House. They were the mainstay on the Disney Channel and starred in the original movies Camp Rock and its sequel. And of course, everybody knows what happened from there. But yeah, I mean, this makes sense. I mean, with their popularity and Disney always looking for fresh content and while also trying to connect with their past child stars, this only makes sense the Jonas Brothers come home for this movie.
Yeah, and of course it'll do really well. They're still massively popular, hence being on New Year's Eve. You know, Dick Clark's New Year's Eve. This is going to do well. I have a theory on the Chloe Bennet casting. I think Chloe Bennet being cast is because remember she's got a relationship too, guys. That's Quake, you know, from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and long been rumored that she is going to reappear because she's a fan favorite in the MCU. And it could be in Secret Wars or it could be in Thunderbolts. There's long been hints to this. Well, this could be a way to reintroduce Chloe Bennet to the audience at ABC and Disney and Marvel, you know, in a big movie that's going to get a lot of eyes. And that would be a smart move. So I'm thrilled. I love Chloe. I think she's awesome. I think she's going to fit right in. And, you know, as Joe's love interest, come on. It seems like a win-win all the way around for me.
Of course, and I mean, it's always like a revolving door with one of their love interests, or at least him now, since he is the only one who's single. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
It is going to be very, because I will say this, Chloe has a tendency in real life to get involved with co-stars, and Joe is single. Yeah, so will love interest in the film translate to another relationship? I'm not trying to call Chloe out. But it has been a thing in the past. I'm just saying. So we'll see. We'll keep our eyes on it. You know what I'm not really looking forward to keeping my eyes on and probably will skip, even though I enjoyed the first one, a sequel to Romy and Michelle's high school reunion. That is also apparently moving ahead at 20th Century Studios with both Mira Sorvino and Lisa Kudrow in negotiations to reprise their starring roles. Apparently, they will also executive produce this thing. Now, Robin Schiff, who wrote the original and is known for, of course, showrunning the Netflix hit Emily in Paris now, is returning to pen the sequel as well. Tim Federer, who directed the Disney Plus original movie Better Nate Than Never, and who created High School Musical, the series, will direct the feature, which is eyeing a June start date. Now, studios say it's close to possibly shooting in Los Angeles, but nothing's been set yet. Listen, it's a great showrun. You know, Robin Schiff, Emily in Paris is huge right now. High School Musical, the series was huge. It launched Olivia Rodrigo. All the people involved in this seems like a no-brainer. This should be a win-win. I'm just not sure if enough people remember Romy and Michelle's high school reunion to make it worth the sequel. That's all I'm saying. Unless you really loved this film to start off with, you probably have never heard of it.
Well, that's me right here. I have never heard of it, so I'm looking it up right now. It looks like 97, came out in 97. Lisa Kudrow. Yep. And who was the other?
Mira Sorvino, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it'll be interesting, that's for sure, because, yeah, like I said, never heard of this film, and it looks very, very interesting. Hour and a half comedy, rated R. So, but I mean, you know, we always say that they need to bring comedies back. So maybe, but you know, why do we have to always go back to the the bonfire that has already been burned.
And this one was very niche for its
Yeah.
time. Like, it was a huge hit because it was relevant then. I don't know
Right.
how you make this thing relevant again. I don't know. It worked then. I don't think it's going to work now. That's just my opinion.
Most definitely, most definitely. Well, we're transitioning over into Fox, and it can't be denied the Super Bowl generally translates into big box office numbers. However, they are only going to have 3 motion picture studios, Disney, Paramount, and Universal, willing to pony up the $7.5 to $8 million for a 30-second time slot on Fox during the Super Bowl. This year, count on the following to air either pre, during, or post game. Now, Disney, the number one studio of last year with more than $2.2 billion at the domestic box office, has always had a presence at the Super Bowl. They've always dropped huge trailers.
Oh, yeah.
It won't be a surprise at all if they do show off the goods for the upcoming picks like Snow White, that's coming out March 21st, Lilo and Stitch, that's coming out May 23rd, or Pixar's Elio, that's coming out June 13th. Now, according to sources that we've been talking to, they'll only be showing off 2 of the 3 upcoming Marvel Studio movies, a batch that includes the upcoming, of course, Captain America Brave New World on February 14th, Valentine's Day. And then, of course, the summer kickoff with the Thunderbolts on May 2nd. And then, of course, the end of this summer, huge film that everybody's anticipating, Fantastic Four: The First Steps on July 25th. That said, the studio has always launched the first look of the big summer movie during this game. So our money is definitely on that Fantastic Four trailer debuting. And I mean, with with Captain America Brave New World being so close to the Super Bowl, I'm betting that's the one that's going to be left off, because I mean, this marketing campaign has already been pushing and a well-oiled machine, so it only makes sense that the other 2 take those spots.
Absolutely. And rumor has it the Fantastic Four trailer is already completed and just waiting to debut. And we know they've got to have a Thunderbolts trailer because we've started to see footage from that as well. So that just makes sense to me. But the one clearly everybody is anticipating is the one everybody's been talking about forever, which is Fantastic Four. That's the biggie that everybody wants to see. Now, the studio right behind Disney in last year's domestic totals with $1.88 billion was Universal. They're set to debut some stuff too. Looks like they're going to be wowing audiences with the trailers for Dean DeBlois' live-action take on his How to Train Your Dragon movie, which opens June 13th. And then, of course, the highly anticipated, but will it work or won't it work, Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali, Jonathan Bailey starrer Jurassic World Rebirth. That's, of course, coming out on July 2nd. And then we've got Gareth Edwards behind that. Also, I think this one we're probably going to see too, Blumhouse's Megan 2.0 on June 27th. Yeah, I think those are all pretty sure we're going to see those. Like, I mean, it seems like they're all big movies, and you got to show, in my opinion, the Jurassic Park one during the Super Bowl, because you're literally the name Rebirth. They're literally rebooting the franchise, and you've got to get eyes on it if you want it to work. So, just
exactly.
It makes sense.
The third time is the charm, they say. The third time is the charm. So we'll see how that goes. But yes, and I mean, finally, Paramount, the last one out of the 3 studios, will air spots for Jack Quaid's comedy thriller Novocaine that's coming out on March 14th. The Smurfs animated musical movie starring Rihanna for July 18th, and then, of course, Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. Now, notably, sitting out this year are Sony, Warner Brothers, Netflix, Amazon MGM Studios, and Lionsgate. It is not expected that Apple Studios will have anything coming out either. So, as you can see, it's very big blockbuster movies by the bigger studios that aren't having a lot of financial troubles, I guess you could say. But I'm Netflix, I feel like I never really saw any trailers come out during the Super Bowl from Netflix anyway, since honestly their dominance that has been the streaming game, but I'm not surprised by that. I am surprised by Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers they need to take risks. They need to have people be aware of their films. Like, for example, that Sinners movie, Michael B.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan and Ryan Coogler. I definitely feel like, that film, even though with being in its niche type of box, I do think you could attract a wide stream audience to that film if you market it properly. But
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to put any, fire behind it because they're scared. They're hugely scared.
I've literally seen one promo for it, and you have
Yeah.
to look real close at that promo to even identify that Michael B's playing twins.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. If you blink, you miss the fact that he's playing twins in the movie. So yeah, this is gonna be. I don't know. You're right, but hey, if you love dogs and you love the Puppy Bowl, you'll see a Superman spot. Apparently, that's where they chose to air a Superman spot. Not the full trailer, but hey, speaking of Superman, let's jump on over to Warner Brothers, and this is potentially not good news for Superman. The estate of Superman creator Joseph Shuster, who of course is co-creator with Jerry Siegel, is suing Warner Brothers Discovery and its DC Comics branch in an attempt to block, yes, you heard me, in an attempt to block the release of James Gunn's upcoming Superman, claiming that it lacks the rights to release the upcoming summer tentpole in a handful of key territories. Now, plaintiff Mark Warren Perry, executor to the estate, filed the suit actually today, as we're recording this on Friday, in federal court in the Southern District of New York, seeking damages and injunctive relief for the defendant's ongoing infringement in Canada, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Australia, as well as other derogatory or declaratory states within the United Kingdom. Now, this is all reestablishing the Shuster estate's ownership rights across relevant jurisdictions. Now, of course, if you remember, this suit revives a long-running dispute that was last addressed by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals way back in 2013. The court rejected the Shuster estate's attempt then to cancel the Superman copyright, finding that Shuster's sister had actually signed away his termination right after his death in 1992. Now, at issue this time in the latest suit are the foreign copyrights to the original Superman character and story. That's where we're playing the game now. So, though Siegel and Shuster assigned the worldwide rights to Superman to DC's predecessor way back in 1938, forget this, y'all, $130. They both made $65 selling the rights to this bad boy. The copyright laws of countries within the British legal tradition, including Canada, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Australia, contain provisions that automatically terminate such assignments of the copyright 25 years after an author's death, vesting in the Shuster estate that the co-author's undivided copyright went back to the family in those countries. Now, the lawsuit requests a jury trial, claiming the defendant's acts of direct infringement have been willful, intentional, and purposeful in wholesale disregard of indifference to the Shuster family. Warner Brothers said in a statement, of course, that they fundamentally disagree with the merits of this lawsuit and will vigorously defend the rights. They won, like I said, a few years back because they could prove that Shuster's sister, even though, if you guys don't know, they changed the copyright laws. So after a certain amount of time of the author's death, it does revert back to the author. That's why you're seeing all the Steamboat Willie stuff and all that kind of stuff. But they were able to prove that Shuster's sister got rid of claim to that and that they still had it. The problem this time around, I think, for Warner Brothers and DC is that this is foreign. And these are foreign countries' copyright laws. So it might not apply as to how they won it the first time around. This could be huge. And why I was kidding, in our tease, it's because those are huge markets. That's a lot of box office revenue in the worldwide total for Superman. That could be a huge stumbling block for a movie that costs as much as this movie costs to make. And we'll just end it here with saying the family is in the process of making its own Superman movie because they did get the rights back here. So film rights back here. So that's clearly playing into the decision. They want to be able to release their own Superman movie in territories without problems with Warner Brothers. So this is just an ugly mess that, as creators, we can understand, because a lot of creators early on, both in film and comic book and books, were screwed over by big companies getting them to sell off their rights for nothing. And so, I understand this lawsuit, but I don't think this one's got merit either. I think they're going to lose.
Which is unfortunate. I was going to ask, has someone who has, had their own encounters with the copyright stuff, I mean, how do you feel about that? Do you feel for the family, or are you on Team
I
DC,
absolutely feel for the family, and I feel that statement that they made, I've seen that statement, and they basically tell you, you ain't got no money and we do, and we'll just ride you until you can't afford to sue us anymore.
Right.
And so I absolutely feel for not just the Schuster family, but the Siegel family also. I mean, come on, guys. I don't give a shit if it was 1930 whatever or now. To jive them for $130, and then you look at the empire that the Superman character has built for Warner Brothers, that's fucking wrong. It's just wrong. And I mean, I'm just riding the death of Superman, baby. I'm mad as hell, but I mean, I just feel for them. So yeah, I'd actually like to see them win and get some turnaround here. Even in the foreign markets, it'll be tougher for Warner Brothers, but I still think they're going to prevail.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, and it's crazy what big businesses can do to regular people, especially those who are creative and just try to have their product and their process and their content, their script, their characters seen, and just want the best for, their already established IP. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's a fluid situation, but of course we'll stay on top of it. Just like other things we're staying on top of, transitioning into Paramount, and a follow-up from a story that we told you about last week on ITCAFpodcast. The Special Committee of Paramount Global's board of directors says it's bound by a pending agreement to merge with Skydance and will not consider an 11th hour offer from a rival bidder. Now, Project Rise Partners, in a statement, a spokesman for the committee formed last year to evaluate opportunities and stir a merger, said the investment group effectively arrived too late to the party. This all comes as the deal is falling under fresh scrutiny from regulators from the Federal Communications Commissions. So, I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense. Like, you pull up, like, when everybody's leaving. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I mean, that's kind of what my thoughts were last week, too. It's just like, you already see where this business is going. You already see that, the two parties are communicating very well with each other. The two companies are talking about merging and doing all of the things. But then you come in being like, oh, yeah, by the way, I want my hand in the pot, too. Like, I agree with what the statement says. Too little, too late.
Which it's odd, because the company's lawsuit is claiming they weren't too late, that they actually attempted during the window and were ignored, which would be illegal. If the committee did in fact ignore them during that window, that would be against the law and they would have a suit. But it's a he said, she said. They're saying you didn't come during that window and now you're trying to come and it's too late. And of course the other company's saying we absolutely came during that window. And so I don't know, man. I don't know. It's he said, she said is going to go to the Paramount. They're going to rule in favor of. But that said, you close that story with what we've been talking about all the way. The FCC still has not even signed off on the Skydance merger yet. So it might not even happen anyway. Again, this is, as you say, a fluid situation, and we will keep our eyes on it. All right, now let's jump to some fun stuff for Paramount, because I was a fan of the latest Scream installment, even though apparently the two new leads aren't coming back. But there's all kinds of news for Scream 7. The cast for this bad boy is continuing to expand, and with some interesting twists, y'all. The first edition now that we're going to talk about is Mr. Kelly Ripa himself, Mark Consuelos, who Consuelos will play We don't know. It's still unknown. But he, of course, joins the previously announced legacy cast members of Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox, as well as Mason Gooding and Jasmine Savoy Brown, alongside newcomers, which I'm super excited about, Isabel May, Celeste O'Connor, Asa German, McKenna Grace, Sam Reckner, Anna Camp, and, of course, Joel McHale, who replaces your favorite guy, Patrick Dempsey, as Sidney Prescott's husband. Now, here's the twist, y'all. Here's the twist in the casting. Matthew Lillard and Scott Foley are also returning to the franchise. Wait, what? Interesting, right? Considering both of their characters died in previous installments. Now remember, Lillard's character, the stonerish teen Stu Macher, was revealed to be one of the 2 killers in the first Scream, and that reveal was swiftly followed by him being electrocuted to death and smashed into a giant TV. Remember that? And Foley, if you guys remember, played antagonist Roman Bridger, the film director and half-brother of Sidney Prescott, who was revealed to be the Ghostface killer in Scream 3. He was, of course, killed by Dewey when Sidney requested that he be killed. Now, he, of course, if you don't remember, he faked his death before, so, but it's not. Dewey definitively killed him. So this isn't a he faked his death thing again, right? He definitively killed him that time. How they're going to bring them back? Is it flashback things? Is it... no clue. They're keeping the whole plotline thing under wraps. My question is, we have our legacy cast, right? Courtney Cox and Neve Campbell coming back. If you guys remember, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, but my bad, Dewey died also. Is Dewey coming back? Are they going to bring back Arquette? Because I feel like if you're bringing back all the other dead people, we got to have Dewey back. I mean, only makes sense. Can you do a Scream movie without Dewey? I don't think you can. That's all I'm saying. And I'm actually really excited about this. I don't like how the whole business shit went down of getting rid of Ortega and the new cast members. But I do like the rebirth of the franchise, and I think it was headed in the right direction. So I'm excited about this one.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, we went on a whole little binging before Scream 6 came out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because in our intro video for YouTube, we talk about Scream 6 and it being the best of the franchise since the first one. So yeah, it's awesome. And yeah, it makes sense. Patrick Dempsey is a little busy with the new Dexter prequel. So that makes sense. It makes sense.
It's true. And I heard he wanted a little too much money. And that's fine. I mean, he's earned that, right? He earned that.
He has. Jumping over to the next one, NBC Universal. Peacock has ordered a series adaptation from the Elian Hilderbrand novel, The 5-Star Weekend, with Jennifer Garner attached to star in this bad boy. The project was first reported to be in development at Peacock back in April of 2024 as part of Sue Niegel's and Ali Cruz's overall deal with UCP under their Dinner Party Productions banner. Now, Garner previously received 4 Emmy nominations for Outstanding Lead Actress in a drama for her starring role, of course, in the ABC drama series Alias. Currently, she stars in the Apple TV Plus series The Last Thing He Told Me, which is prepping for its 2nd season. I love seeing this, though, because not that she's old, but the more mature that her career gets, I feel like she can kill and dominate television. And I feel like this is where she's at in her career right now, because, I mean, she's not really doing a lot of, big blockbuster projects. I mean, Peppermint was very lukewarm at the box office, but that next Netflix film that she did, the Yes Day or whatever it was also very popular. So Netflix streaming films and television, I think, is where the evolution of her career is going. And I don't have a problem with it, honestly, because there's still more awards that can be won that she well deserves for years of doing amazing work. So I'm really excited for this and to see a nice resurgence of her career, because the past 5 years you've been seeing more and more of Jennifer coming back.
Yeah, and she's a phenomenal actor. She really is. If you remember Alias, or if you watched Alias, the amount of different characters that she played on Alias and the things that she was able to accomplish, she's a brilliant actor. And that rumor is not going away, guys. There is still talks that that thing is going to be revived or rebooted with J.J. Abrams. So I
Right.
hope that happens, because that would be huge. That would skyrocket her back to stardom
It would.
at a level unmatched. And you're seeing all these other shows. We're about to talk about one. Do we really need it? But I think it would just be huge. Alias would be one that would work. People would go back to that one. And I just think we really should see that one. That would be awesome. So
Right.
I'm right there with you. Sony. We talked about it. We teased it. Sony's got some stuff going on, y'all, and it's not always good with Sony. It seems like every time, the majority of the time we talk about Sony, it's not good stuff. Sony has given the August 29th release date, originally set for Insidious 6, which, by the way, is a huge franchise for Sony. It does well for Sony, to Darren Aronofsky's crime thriller, Caught Stealing, starring Austin Butler. Now, what does that mean for the next Insidious? Well, it's now been pushed nearly a year to August 21st of next year. Now, based on the book series by Charlie Houston, because y'all want to know what the other film is about, right? Caught Stealing. Apparently, it's... The log line, anyway, says it's about a burned-out ex-baseball player, Hank Thompson, who will be Austin Butler, obviously, unexpectedly finds himself embroiled in a dangerous struggle for survival amidst the criminal underbelly of 1990s New York City, which forces him to navigate a treacherous underworld that he never imagined. Okay. Other cast members. Now, this is what gets me excited, though, because this does sound like it might be a pretty good cast. You got Bad Bunny, Action Bronson, Vincent D'Onofrio, who I'm always in on. I love that guy. Zoe Kravitz, same thing, always in. Liev Schreiber, Griffin Dunne, Matt Smith, and Regina King. That's a phenomenal cast. So you would think that, and I've always been a fan of Darren Aronofsky. I think he's a brilliant director who doesn't get nearly enough credit. So I think the thing will work. The untitled sixth installment of the Insidious franchise, of course, was confirmed to be in the works way back in 2024. So being pushed yet again to a later date, it's not too cool about that. But, we'll see it eventually, I'm sure. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
Completely agree. And yeah, I'm glad to see that Austin Butler just keeps working, because that's the advice that the amazing Tom Hanks gave him after Elvis. Don't get
Yes.
trapped in this character. Keep working. And he's doing an amazing job. And all of these fellow cast members that he's had attached to this project are amazing at letting their other fellow cast members shine. Like, they give each other space to create some amazing work. And I also want to say too that I feel like Bad Bunny is my generation's Pitbull, where he can just pop up into anything and everybody loves him, and he's like a cultural phenomenon. Like, I think that's funny. I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, that'll be interesting for sure. That'll be interesting. But we teased it at the top of the show. In the release moves, Sony also announced that an untitled Marvel film, originally set for a June 27th premiere date, has been removed from their release calendar. The decision comes after their Spider-Man spinoff, Kraven the Hunter, bombed over the holiday season, like Dustin said earlier, with only grossing $56 million worldwide, and their budget was north of $110 million. Now, if you guys don't know, you have to basically double your budget for a film to make its money back. And this is a big bath, let's say that. And it's probably going to be a big tax write-off.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, Dustin and I were talking about it off air. This inevitably, I feel like, is going to be a big, fat, sweet paycheck for Sony just to sell back the rights to the Spider-Man characters
Have to.
Disney to be back home with Marvel, because they're already kind of doing some interesting contract negotiation type things, because if you guys didn't see, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man came out on Disney Plus this past week,
thumbs up.
and it's amazing. But how did Disney get around that? Because it's not a team up project and it's strictly Spider-Man. Like, yes, you had like a little pop-ins here or there of like Doctor Strange and the gal who's going to be playing Lizard, like you told me, Dustin. But I don't know, man. I don't know how they're getting around this. I feel like Sony is loosening the reins a little bit just to be able to see what they can get. But again, Disney and Kevin Feige would offer up like a whole Brinks truck to freaking get Spider-Man back home where he belongs with all of his fellow Marvel superheroes.
And the thing is they won't have to back up the Brinks truck if Sony continues to see these flops, because
Yeah.
the value of Spider-Man's film rights just continues to drop in Sony's hands as they
Right.
continue to flop. So Disney will be able to come in and like, do you want to continue? I mean, think about it. You said it. $110 million budget means $220 million had to be made just to break even and then go into profit. It only made $56 million, which means not even close. If you continue to do that with the next 2, 3, 4 films, you are in massive trouble with that. So Disney's just going to keep coming at him going, well, we were going to give you this, and now we're going to give you this. And the next bomb will be like, now you should just give it back to us for free because you can't do shit. So I think the longer they keep attempting to fix it at Sony, they're hurting themselves in the long run, because Disney will eventually be able to pick it up at, like, Universal is the example. They hurt themselves so much with the Hulk that it just eventually just kind of secretly, quietly reverted. Like, that's why we're getting a solo Hulk movie finally. It very quietly, subtly reverted back to Disney because Universal was like, fuck it, take it. Like, you know,
exactly.
And that's what's going to happen with Sony. I feel like they have an opportunity, like you said, to get a payday for the rights, but I think it might backfire. They might just be like, fuck it, take it. It's just, I don't know. Let's jump on over to Amazon. This one again has me worried about my predictions for this coming year, because I made a bold prediction with Lionsgate and Warner Brothers. But Amazon apparently wanted Lionsgate's library at least. So let's talk about it a little bit. They have apparently made a deal, a multi-year agreement for Lionsgate's movies. As part of a new deal, Prime Video will have an exclusive early window following Starz' exclusive first run window, beginning with Lionsgate's 2026 theatrical releases available to U.S. customers, a package of films from the 2025 slate, and a commitment for a licensing library of movies and TV. Now, the new deal will include top Lionsgate brands and franchises, such as the third installment of the Now You See Me franchise and the Hunger Games prequel, The Hunger Games: Sunrise of the Reaping, based on the novel, of course. Now, starting in 2026, Prime Video will also be able to select premiere titles from Lionsgate's catalog, including such premium franchises as John Wick, Twilight, Divergent, Saw, and Emmy-winning TV series like Nurse Jackie and Weeds, among others. So, this is a sweet grab for Prime. Because Lionsgate, we've talked about it, and which is why I said that Warner Brothers Discovery would be smart to spin off Warner Brothers and then have Warner Brothers acquire this library. They've got a lot of huge franchises and IP in this library. So Amazon recognizing that and swooping in and making this multi-year agreement is smart, in my opinion.
Completely agree. And I mean, I don't feel like Amazon MGM Studios really gets enough credit for how decisive they are when it comes to their decisions for their film and television products. I really feel like, what they're going to do in this next phase with like James Bond is going to be very interesting. And I think that's going to kind of show the entertainment industry, what they have behind them and what they're able to do with a big historical franchise. So I think that's going to be amazing to see. But yeah, I think they're just waiting in the shadows for their chance to show everybody else how great they are.
Agreed.
So it's going to be very freaking fun to watch. But we are going to head over to Netflix, where Spike Lee has set his next joint. The Katrina Come Hell and Water will revisit the hurricane that caused 1,392 fatalities and more than $100 billion in damages back in 2005. Now, the official logline for the documentary, set to drop in August, says the hurricane that turned charismatic through human error and neglect. Over the course of a gripping and emotional 3 episodes, the people of New Orleans recount their past, extol their present, and lean into the future of what they and their beloved city survived and have become over 20 years later. Now, the series set the stage for a tragedy whose man-made elements expose the systemic governmental neglect that led to the city being defenseless in the face of the storm, and Katrina's devastating impact that changed New Orleans uh, ir- irreparably, something. Uh,
Irreparably.
irreparably.
There you go.
But yes, yeah, we're super excited about this one because obviously we love Spike Lee. He's an amazing director and he always has amazing concepts. But this one hits home because we are from the Gulf South basically, and everywhere you turn down here, you have stories about Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
Yes, it really messed up New Orleans, but I'm really hoping that they touch a lot on what it did to the Gulf Coast of Mississippi as well, because it got hit harder here than it actually did in New Orleans. New Orleans got a lot of press coverage, obviously, because it's a huge historic city, but their levees broke and it just completely fucked everything up. But Mississippi, like, also got completely fucked up as well. So I'm really hoping he touches on that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up because I want to clarify to all of our listeners out there worldwide. Hurricane Katrina did not make landfall in Louisiana. Not New Orleans, not Louisiana at all. Hurricane Katrina made landfall in Pass Christian, Mississippi, and it devastated Mississippi. The storm devastated Mississippi. The floods devastated New Orleans because the levees broke. Now, I'm not discounting the irreparable harm and the damage and the lives lost or anything like that in New Orleans. It was devastating. It was a tragedy, but it was a preventable tragedy. It would have been rainstorms and heavy winds, nothing like what it was if those levees had held. And living in Louisiana a majority of my life, those levees have been a problem for as long as I've been alive. And they have been saying that they are a problem and need to be addressed for as long as I can remember. They were not, and they failed. And this is what happened. So this documentary, I have no doubt Spike Lee will do a fantastic job highlighting that. He talks about that. You said it's going to set up the man-made governmental issues that caused this tragedy. But it's a tragedy that did not have to happen, at least not at the scope that it happened in Louisiana/New Orleans, if not for the failure of the levees. So don't forget Mississippi, where it actually hit. We lived there for a vast majority of our life. You're there now. There are still areas where you can drive along the coast of Mississippi and see blank slates and dead trees from the hurricane 20 years later that have not been rebuilt or reestablished. It's still a thing. And yeah, it irks me sometimes when people forget that it was landfall in Mississippi, not Louisiana. But I think Spike's going to do a really good job of addressing it. I'm actually kind of excited to see his take on how he breaks it down. He never fails to make solid content, so it's going to be good.
Agreed. Well, you have something.
Yeah. Now that I'm done, Jeremy Allen White, y'all, is like Hollywood's golden boy right now, is apparently attached to star in and executive produce a Netflix limited series adaptation of the Andre Ackerman novel Enigma Variations. Ooh, that just sounds intriguing. Amanda Kate Schumann is attached to serve as writer, executive producer, and showrunner, with Oliver Jimenez set to direct and executive produce. Now, should it move forward, this would be the second on-screen adaptation of one of Ackerman's novels. Previously, his novel Call Me By Your Name was turned into a critically acclaimed film, of course, starring Timothée Chalamet and Armie Hammer. I like this if you're not familiar with the content of it, and I won't give too much away, but it's a risk for Jeremy Allen White. The character is, if I'm not mistaken, either bisexual or something of that. He's got a lot going right now, and he's got a very specific fan base. So to take a risk on content like this and to play a character like that, I think is brilliant. Just shows how superior an actor this guy is, and he's not scared to go out on limbs and take risks with what he chooses. I love this. I think he's phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be great.
For sure. Completely agree. Yes. 3-time Emmy winner over the past 3 years. So this man is killing it right now. And if I'm not mistaken, this might be his first Netflix project.
I think so.
Yeah, so I mean, very cool to see. Very cool to see. He's been with Disney for the past, however long, and now he's branching out a little bit. So that's really awesome. Netflix also greenlit this weird why, just why. Anyway, Netflix has greenlit a new TV adaptation of Little House on the Prairie. Yes, that's right. The beloved book series written by Laura Ingalls Wilder. Then the official logline for the new series states part hopeful family drama, part epic survival tale, and part origin story of the American West. This is a fresh adaptation of Laura Ingalls Wilder's iconic semi-autobiographical Little House books, offers some crazy views of struggles and triumphs of those who shaped the frontier. We've seen this a few times,
Yeah.
and there it's just why? I mean, I actually it just came to mind. Is this Netflix attempts to compete with the Yellowstone verse, basically? And that's kind of what it feels like,
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think because
right?
they're billing it as more of an epic Western wild front tale than now. Granted, the original, Laura Ingalls Wilder's a real person, and these are based on her real stories growing up. And they did go through some horrendous winter storms. They went through, tragedy on the Wild West. Yeah, but I feel like you're right. They're gonna elevate this thing to a level that probably isn't realistic to what Laura Ingalls Wilder actually went through. And I think you're right. I think it is to try to compete with the big Western flair now and the success that Paramount is seeing with
Right.
those things. I don't think we need it. I don't think we need
Yeah,
it. And
not at all.
you and I have talked about this off air, but like it's the Melissa Gilbert and Michael Landon were the reason that show was successful. I'm sorry, but otherwise it's just books. The books are amazing, but the show I don't think would have been nearly the hit that it was if not for the huge success of Michael Landon. Remember Bonanza and I Was a Teenage Werewolf and like all these. He was a massive star that brought that in. And then made that show what it was. I don't see this working. I don't see it working. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe and I hope I'm wrong for the people involved in it. But I don't see it. I just don't see it. Like,
Yeah, that's wild, man. I don't get it. I don't get it because yeah, again, a lot of other content out there from up and coming writers are already established writers who are trying to navigate where the entertainment industry is going, and you're basing this off of the success of something else that is completely different. It's completely rugged. I don't see this being rugged. I don't see this being like down in the dirt, hardcore cowboy hardcore, I guess you could say, like
cowboy
Yellowstone.
hardcore. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and like because it reminds me a lot of like the 1883 concept.
No,
So
yeah,
I feel
totally.
like that's gonna be the parallel of it. So I just don't think it's necessary.
No, agreed. I just and there's talk that they're not even going to make it Walnut Grove, that it's going to be a different area and a different. I'm like, what? Like, it just
Right.
yeah, none of it makes sense to me. Anyway, we're going to jump on over to Apple and speed things up to close out the industry news. What do I mean by that? Well, Danae Guerrera has joined John Cena in Matchbox. Yes, Matchbox, Apple Original Films live action take on, of course, the classic Mattel car toy line. Now, the actress best known for playing the fan favorite character Michonne on ABC's The Walking Dead now joins a call sheet that also includes, are you ready for this, guys? Because this is big, Sam Richardson, Tiona Paris, and Arturo Castro. The film, based, like I said, on the toy brand first created all the way back in 1953, is described as an action-packed, globe-trotting adventure that centers on a group of childhood friends who must work together to stop an impending worldwide disaster and rediscover their friendship along the way. Sounds fun.
Interesting. It
Sounds like
does
an
sound fun.
amazing race type thing, but in a movie, like, right? Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it is. It's an interesting concept, and I like what Apple does too because I think they did really well with the Tetris film
Yeah.
with Taron Egerton, and to have these different spins on these iconic toy game lines. I think it's a different concept that not really a lot of other people are doing. Obviously, you know, Barbie and like the video game verse, I guess you could say, with all from all these different studios. But I like this. I think it's going to be successful. Hopefully, like we said, Apple is very big on quantity over quality, or quality over quantity.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think it's going to be good, man. I think it's going to be good.
Same.
But yeah, I mean, we really shall, because there's a lot happening. Something else that just popped up on IMDb Pro that I wanted to mention, I thought it was really freaking cool. Universal Studios is offering LA wildfire first responders free theme park tickets after everything that was obviously happening, and trying to protect everyone during the fires out in Los Angeles. So, I mean, kudos to Universal, Comcast, everybody over there with that team, you know, showing their support and showing their love for the people who protected, or at least tried to protect, the city, and did protect a lot of people. So that's amazing to see.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see Disney follow up with that, maybe giving them free, tickets to Disneyland. I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure they're not going to say come all the way to Orlando for Disney World, but yeah, yeah. It's been an amazing effort out there, and yeah, it's just. And not to make light of it, guys, it's not over. There's still a lot that needs to be done out there. The cleanup
Yeah.
process has begun, and because of all the damage that the fires caused, the recent rain, which was good for helping put out the fires, is now causing mudslides. So
Yeah.
so there's still so much more out there that they're trying to deal with, and continued best wishes for them. And if you can help. I know a lot of people are volunteering. A lot of our friends are volunteering, and we've sent monetary funds to help out. So if you can still do that, yeah. But I agree with you. Kudos to Comcast for doing that. It's a nice move. Nice move.
Most definitely, man. Most definitely. Well, now we are going to head over to our top five segment, man. With the Oscars just around the corner, we are watching anything and everything we can get our hands on when it comes to the nominees. Last week, I will say that the most favorite film that I watched of the Oscar nominees was Conclave.
Mm.
I loved Conclave. Have you watched it
I
yet?
have, I have. I enjoyed it. It's very much along the type of films I like. You know that.
Yeah.
I like drama-driven, dialogue-driven films, and I'm a history buff. I'm a huge history buff. So this is, while not a true story, it's set in historical themed of things that have happened, in the archdiocese before. So obviously, yeah, I like. But mine was Wild Robot.
Yeah.
Caught me completely off guard. I was like, what's all this freaking buzz about? Why is everybody talking about this? It can't be. I mean, I like a good animated flick, but I think this should have been put in the 10 choices of best picture overall, not just best animated. I think this bad boy probably deserved to be in best picture. It was that good, y'all. If you
It
haven't
was really
seen it,
good.
it just, but have the tissues. Have the tissues. That's all I'm
Yes,
saying.
for sure.
You'll cry.
Pedro Pascal plays a perfect fox, I will say. He's a
He
perfect
does.
fox.
He does. All the characters were really good in that film. I just
Yeah.
yeah, it was really. It's it's a message film, but without being a message film, if that makes
Yeah. It
sense.
doesn't shove it down your throat.
It doesn't, but it's the right message. It's not political. It's not about you should be doing this or should be that, should be saving the planet, blah, blah, blah. It's about people should be people and love each other.
Yeah.
Like, basically is the message. And you can't go wrong with a message like that. That's all I'm saying.
No, you cannot. You cannot. But yes, this week it is our top five favorite Oscar Best Picture winners, and this was very hard. We even debated extending it to our top 10, but man, oh man, we were like, no, let's just stick with the five, stick with the five. But
Mm.
it was very difficult. I have some on here that, you know, are near and dear to my heart, because it's like when I started breaking into the film industry, what was my first Oscars and things like that. So we'll definitely dive into the backstory behind those films. But number five for me goes to Rain Man, freaking Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Ah, it was so good. I watched it for the first time a couple of years ago, and I mean, what Dustin Hoffman was able to do, I thought was amazing. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And Tom Cruise, being Tom Cruise, he knows how to lead a film, and he knows how to portray that normal human being who's just concerned about their life and trying to move past things, especially when there's like big deaths in the family. But realizing and taking a step back that, hey, life has changed now, especially when you have a sibling or somebody with a disability in your family, and realizing that, okay, it's time for me to step up and try to take care of him. So I love the mirror to society that Rain Man really represents, and to show the comedic aspect of it, because it doesn't have to always be so serious when it comes to people with disabilities. Like, these are also just people who like to laugh, they like to
Yeah.
have fun, they like to be a normal person. And I think this film at that point in time in society really made an impact and still does today. But yeah, number 5 for me, Rain Man.
I, I obviously I love this film. I've always been a huge fan of this film, and I would argue that this film's success led to the demise of Kmart. Forget it wasn't Walmart, it wasn't any other store. Why did Kmart inevitably fail and go out of business? Because Raymond said Kmart sucks.
That's what it
It
was.
became such a mainstay line though. That film was so touching in so many ways, but like you just said, touched on comedic stuff with the Kmart sucks or the 97X, bam, the
Yeah.
future of rock and roll. All these like staples of pop culture that launched from that film was incredible. And I think, keep in mind, this is as Tom Cruise's star is beginning to rocket. He wasn't
Hmm.
quite there yet. This is almost to where he be, and yet Dustin Hoffman at that point, legend.
Yeah.
So for Dustin Hoffman to play second fiddle to a lesser actor at that point and do it the way that they did it, it's mind-boggling. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. The whole film, I love it. Great choice. Great choice. My number 5, because you kind of preferenced where you were coming with my list of films. I chose these 5 because, in my opinion, all of these films are filmmaker films. Every
Hmm.
one of these had at some point a groundbreaking element to it in film, whether it was cinematography, whether it was acting, whether it was audio, whether that hadn't been seen before. And so these are the kind of movies that I gravitated to as a filmmaker. And my number 5 is Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. Why did I gravitate so heavily to this film to begin with, to watch it? Duh. It was the resurgence, the beginning of the resurgence of the one and only Michael Keaton himself. This was after he had taken a long basic stay off, right? Nobody had seen him in a while. He was trying to, and this film, which I thought brilliantly did, poked fun at Keaton's success as Batman. The story behind this is a guy that played a legendary superhero, Birdman, got typecast and basically couldn't get taken seriously after that, couldn't get any gigs, tried to go back to theater, nobody would take him seriously, and what it did to him mentally and how he had to try to overcome it. Fucking brilliant. And then the brilliance of casting Keaton in it as somebody who had gone through it. I mean, come on. And then you had Edward Norton and Emma Stone and just all the people involved in this film. And then the groundbreaking. The entire film is one continuous shot. Maybe. They kind of hinted early on that it's not, but it's edited to look so. But it had never really kind of been done like that before. And now many films after that have copied that. It was just so groundbreaking. But for me, it was the storytelling, the acting, the drama, and the resurgence of Michael Keaton that just really sent this thing home for me. Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance.
Very nice, very nice. My number 4 goes to Green Book.
Mm.
Now, I put this one on the list because I believe this was the first time I was watching the Oscars like all the way through. So 2018, that's when it won. And I mean, we all know it's, Driving Miss Daisy, Morgan Freeman, and if it's not broke, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I feel like, with that film winning, it was only inevitable that this film was going to win. But this was also primetime Trump candidacy in the first time around, so I feel like, the world was kind of in a culture shock.
Mm.
And this film really brought back a lot of, this is what happened when we all hated each other. And this is what happened when certain people weren't allowed to go certain places. Like, the Green Book is real. It's a real book that Black people in the South had for restaurants, hotels, different places that they were allowed to go,
Yep.
which is absolutely wild. It's hard to even think about as a young man growing up in, the late 90s, early 2000s. And it's hard to think about being in a place like that where this is the only thing, or the only places you're allowed to go to. You're not freely allowed to go to anywhere else. But I love this film because, I mean, it shows the growth and the love and cherishment that you get from letting your guard down and getting to know someone who you read the book by its cover. So being able to put your ego aside, being able to put your first impressions aside, and realizing that, okay, this is actually a good person, or this is actually a good thing. And so that's why I had to put it on the list. It's a historical mile marker for me. Like I said, being the first Oscars I ever watched all the way through. But yeah, number 4 for me, The Green Book.
Love it, love it. And the sad thing is that there's still areas in this country that are like that.
Yeah.
The laws have changed, but some communities have not, and they are
Mm-hmm.
people that are not welcome in certain establishments in certain parts of this country. And we've come a long way, but in certain areas, we've got a long way still to go. So I think these movies are relevant to remind people of that.
Yes.
It's a great choice. My number 4, I've talked about this one on the show before, and for me, it's the pure brilliance of storytelling. This film, The Artist, is a film about the end of the talkies, the end of the silent film era, done as a silent film. Like, to take a modern day film and tell the story of the end of the silent film era, or the talkie as they were known as, and do it as a silent film, huge risk. Huge risk. Is anybody going to even pay attention to this? By the way, it's shot in black and white also. It's literally like you were watching a talkie. And a lot of people don't even like to see subtitles, let alone an entire film that there's not a line of dialogue spoken until damn near the end. And it's just, and I will say this, the 2 stars of this film were lesser known people. They were foreign actors who a lot of American audiences no clue who they were. So you're already taking a risk with the content of the film, the look of the film. Then you throw into actors that the majority of people don't know who they are. So this whole thing was a gigantic risk that paid off massively. It was huge. It became like this phenomena that everybody had to see. Everybody was talking about, which was just mind-boggling to me. And as a full-on filmmaker, it's hard to argue the brilliance of taking an idea like that and going backwards, if you will. Hey, we have all this technology. We have all these cool things. We can do CGI. We can do all these. Let's make a movie and not put any words in it. No dialogue. No, yeah. And I'm like, what? And to do it the way they did it is just brilliant. I highly recommend, if you're not a filmmaker, watch this movie. But if you are trying to break into the industry as specifically as like a director or a writer or a storyteller, this movie is a must-see to show you how it's done, because it's brilliant. My number 4, The Artist.
The only one on your list that I haven't seen yet. I mean, it's still on my list.
You
so
will
yeah,
love
for
it.
sure.
I know you will. Just every aspect of it. I know. I see how you approach things and the type things you watch and the type things that grab you. You'll love this film. You will.
For sure, man. For sure. Well, number 3 for me goes to Everything Everywhere All at Once. I thought this film was amazing because it was so different from anything else we had ever seen before. And the storytelling behind it, I thought, was outstanding, right? Because we, as a society, we unintentionally put ourselves in boxes, and this film completely busted the box wide open.
Yes.
Right, being able to time travel to different dimensions and the fight sequences and having people resurrect their careers and just a whole bunch of different things from this film, and the CGI, and Jamie Lee Curtis, and again, like, the amount of thought and effort that went into this film was very inspiring to see, because, like, I can only imagine what it was like to pitch this film to the said studio to try to get this thing made, because I mean, it's crazy to watch, but when you're reading it for the first time, you're probably like, what the fuck am I reading? Like, what is
Yeah,
going on?
without doubt.
But I just thought, with how different it was, how groundbreaking, and how it pushed the envelope, it pushed the boundaries of what is a Oscar Best Picture.
Mm.
So I felt like it was well deserved. It was great for representation when it comes to the Academy. And it was great for up and coming filmmakers to see, because you realize that you don't have to be in that box. You can write weird shit and it can get made and it can get an Oscar. And I thought that's what this film did. So I had to put it on the list. Number 3 for me, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
So good, man. I agree with that. Great breakdown. That's a great explanation as to why that film worked and why it won Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. My top 3. I don't even have to say a lot about these films. I don't have to tell you the cast members. I don't have to tell you, what they were about, because everyone knows them, and they're on my list for a reason. And I'm gonna preface it with this: each one of my final top 3 were at the time considered the definitive best movie ever made. Period.
Mm.
Period. That was the pinnacle of filmmaking. And all of these at one point claim that title. I'm going to start with my number 3, Casablanca.
Mm.
All of these films are love stories set against the backdrop of historical time frames. The World War II, the 1970s gangster New York, the time of the atomic bomb. All of these are set that way. Casablanca is just that. At the time, it was an extremely risky movie to make about a love story taking place with the backdrop of World War II and Nazi-dominated Germany and the Jewish Holocaust camps and all of these things going on, and yet we're telling a love story. And that people were like, wait, what? And yet it just worked in every possible context that there is. It was brilliant cinematography. It was brilliant storytelling. It was a brilliant script. The directing was phenomenal. Obviously, the cast. Everything about this made you forget everything about what was happening in the film other than the love story.
Mm-hmm.
Which is brilliant. If you can take that and make the subject matter such as it was and make everybody forget about the turbulent, nervous, bad time that historical time was, and just focus on the love story. Focusing on putting your two lips together and blowing, right? Like that is brilliant filmmaking. And that's why I chose it, Casablanca. That's all I really have to say. You know who stars. You know what it is. You know where it takes place. You know what it's all about. Casablanca, number 3.
Definitely goes down as one of my favorite movies of all time. That's for sure. It's so freaking good.
So good.
Number 2 for me is still the only film from a streamer to win Best Picture. Still the only film. I'm talking about Coda. Of course, this being centered around a young girl who's trying to make the most out of her life and her musical career, but she grows up in a family of deaf people. So that puts a lot of responsibility on her. And to be able to watch this as someone who, in my family growing up, no one had any disabilities, no one had any ailments to where, like, it made it, I don't want to say inconvenient, but it made it harder for us to live. Like, So to be in those shoes of someone who had to take care of their family, who had to kind of be a liaison for their family when their family is like a group of fishermen on a boat, trying to make money and working as like that. But this film was so beautiful. And I remember sitting down and watching it and just bawling my eyes out because it's one of those films that is so touching. But it's not only touching, it's funny. Like you laugh, you cry, you think about life, you reflect. Like this film brings all of that together. And it's honestly, one of my favorite films of all time still. So that's why I love watching all of the Oscar nominees, or at least attempting to watch all of them, because you do have those really weird, really out there ones that are good, the ones that are bad, but then you have the touching ones that are like, okay, this film could make a difference and start conversations
Without doubt.
later down the line. So I think that's exactly what this film did. So number 2 for me, Coda.
Yeah. I agree with everything you just said. You really do ride every emotion in this film. You do laugh, you do cry, you do get mad, you do find yourself, literally every emotion that's possible you feel in this film. Another thing I think that this film did really just unique, because I've never had it happen to me in any other film. You both like at one point and hate at one point every character in this film. You feel for them and love them, and then there's other points where you just can't stand them and like, why are they doing what they're doing? I fucking hate that kind of a shit. And I've never had that happen before. You either normally love a character or hate a character. You connect to them, but it's either because you hate them or because you love them. This film uniquely was able to make you feel both sets of emotions towards every character in the film, which I just thought was brilliant. I watched this one now with a whole new perspective because I am now a coda. Who knew? And the challenges that I am going through now at my age and with my parents' age being this, I can't even put in words how challenging it is. So the idea that it's from birth, you are dealing with that from birth on. Amazing individuals. The parents and the children that live this life and go through this from the time they are born till just, I have no words. And I am so glad that somebody made a film to highlight it, because I can't even imagine. I've had it for like 4 years and I'm just like, so I don't even know. My number 2.
I'm surprised you put this one at number 2.
I went back and forth. Back and forth. I really, really went back and forth. And I think that my number 1 only skimmed it by a bit because of the scope of and what he was able to do cinematography wise. Otherwise, I think it would have been the other way around. But my number 2 is obviously one of the most pop culture iconic lines ever to be uttered in cinema. I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. You're going to sleep with the horses. You name it. People know this film. The Godfather. Do I really have to say anything else about it? It literally defined an era. It literally launched every single person in that film's career and relaunched a legend. And so, I mean, I don't know how you don't say that is maybe the best picture of all time. Many people still argue that this is the best film of all time, and rightfully so. I would argue that it's maybe the best film of all time. I had to go back and forth. It's just brilliant storytelling from start to finish, and brilliant acting, and just it is again, like I said, the same as Casablanca. It is truly a love story about a family. Plain and simple. Forget all the violence, forget all of the other stuff that's involved with organized crime and the mafia set in the historic backdrop that this film takes place. It is a love story and a family who goes through it all. And that is the premise and heart of this film and its sequels. And again, it's just brilliant storytelling when you can make people forget. I mean, the fucking mafia loved it. I mean, they were able to focus the story on a love story and show the humanity and the good in these violent gangsters. And when you can do that, I mean, come on. And what's it called? The Offer, right? If you guys haven't seen it, watch The Offer, about the making of this film and how the mafia was so heavily involved in making sure it was portrayed the way they wanted it portrayed, and how the studio went against that and said, we're going to make the movie we want to make, and if you kill us, you kill us, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
The whole thing behind getting The Godfather made and how it turned out is just brilliant. And then, of course, you have the whole history of Ali McGraw cheating on Bob at the time of... there's so much going on during the making of this film. Mario Puzo, the screenwriter, with the huge success of Brando and Superman and all this... it's mind-boggling to me that the film got made, let alone became what it was. And so... that's why, I mean, you have to put this on the list. You have to. And if you've never watched the Godfather movies, just, what? First of all,
right.
What?
Where have you been?
Where have you been? It's like, I don't care when you were born. You should have already watched these movies. Like, so, number 2, The Godfather. And if you haven't, go watch them.
So good, man. So good. Well, number 1, this should come by no surprise because I've talked about this one so freaking many times. It's The Departed. The Departed is like my all-time favorite.
You do love this one.
Oscar Best Picture. It's just the cast alone, man. The story is amazing, about a dirty cop and then an undercover cop just trying to navigate the mafia, what is the mafia? The mafia doesn't exist. I don't know. Or even talking about
I don't know.
now.
No. They're all good people just trying to make a living.
Exactly. That's it. But yeah, this film, I mean, obviously, Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson, Martin Sheen, Mark Wahlberg, so many other people in this film that just absolutely blow it out of the park, man. If you haven't watched this, please be sure to do so. But it's interesting now because I feel like Oscar winners, Oscar voters, I should say, I feel like their goal is to try to pick a film or pick, whatever category they're in, and they want the winner to be a substantial piece of art that could help people, that could change people's minds, that could start conversations. I don't know really what they were thinking during this. I mean, we know that the Oscars and the Academy loves hardcore dramas when it centers around the mafia, the Catholic Church, like so many different racism. Like there's certain genres and certain topics that the Academy loves, and they will always nominate. And the mafia, I think, is one of those. And obviously with Martin Scorsese directing this thing, they killed it, man. Knocked it out of the park. So of course it's going to be on there. So yeah, number 1 for me, The Departed.
It's timeless.
It is.
I don't think that gangster films or the interest in organized crime is ever going to go away. It's just something that people are intrigued about. And if you get a brilliant storyteller like a Francis Ford Coppola or like a Martin Scorsese, it's a win-win. I don't think it will ever not be entertaining. And so, we're going to keep seeing them, and they're probably going to keep winning, and it just makes sense. It's... yeah, it just touches on so many things. And to this day, 2025, I feel like in many of those families, it is still a thing. You have 2 paths. You either go bad or go good and become a cop. I really do feel like that is so true still to this day in so many of those families. And so that is a history that is still prevalent. And it's a story that's not going to go away. And I love that.
Agreed.
I love that. My number 1, I've said it over and over, and since day one when I saw it, in my opinion, is probably the greatest film ever made from every aspect of filmmaking. How it bounces back and forth between timelines, how it bounces back and forth between black and white and color, how it bounces back and forth between the love story and the historical drama that's taking place, the subject matter in which it approaches. This film is 90% dialogue driven. even though it's about a big explosion. It's 90% dialogue driven. It beautifully maneuvers a massive cast, in which point you don't ever feel like somebody didn't get their due.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Nolan is brilliant at making that happen. I'm, of course, talking about Oppenheimer. He's really good at, even if the cast is just 37 people, you feel like they all got adequate time. Yeah, and not many directors can do that with such ensemble casts like that. But obviously, this film is to this day, it is still debated on whether that bomb should have ever been dropped. Are we the villains of this story? And many people around the world still argue that we are. Yeah. And even though we ended the war, we are still perceived as the villains for doing such a horrific thing and creating a technology that to this day is still potentially world destroying if used. And so, but again, none of that matters because it was a love story. Yeah. It was literally an Oppenheimer love story about him and his wife and how they were able to deal with what they dealt with, how they were able to overcome the emotion of what they were going through. It's a story about love between him and his brother. It's a story about, there's so many things going on between family and spouse and just relationship that it is truly, again, much like The Godfather, a love story of dynamic love stories between family, spouses, etc. that you forget, oh yeah, we're talking about the fucking atom bomb and dropping it. You forget about that for a little bit. And it's, to be able to pull that off is just incredible. And then again, from a filmmaking aspect, I mean, they created new shit for IMAX cameras to be able to do what they did. And that bad boy was a real explosion. I mean, a real explosion, guys. And then they caught it with all these like different type of camera things and effects and all that. Just brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant. So for me, that is why. And like I said, I flip-flop back and forth. But I just think because of what he was able to pull off and the scope that he pulled it off in, it bumped up to number one for me. But my number one, Oppenheimer.
Well, there it is, guys. The exploding top five. That is our favorite Oscar Best Picture winners. We want to know, what is your favorite? Please be sure to comment down below in the comment sections on YouTube, podcasts, add us on X or Threads. We love that. We want to start getting you guys more involved, so maybe you can start helping us vote for a couple of our top fives on social media. So be sure to follow us on social media at J Logan Austin and at Crazy Ant CEO, so you can stay up to date when we will be running those polls.
Yes.
So now we are heading over to the box office recap, where a plane came down and almost crashed. Well, we thought it was going to be a box office bomb, but Flight Risk came in at number one with $12 million. It doesn't seem like a lot, but we're starting the year off kind of slow, and this was a very cheap film to make, and Mel Gibson came out on top because he directed this thing. This is his his sperm baby, and it just killed, I guess, some semi. It was okay. It was entertaining. It was a fun movie. It's not groundbreaking. The CGI is kind of rough, and but you know, if you go back and look at my Letterboxd review, I gave it like a 1.5 out of 5. But I mean, I overall enjoyed the movie. I wasn't like, what the fuck am I watching, like I did with Lighthouse. But overall, I actually enjoyed this movie. Number 2 was Mufasa the Lion King with $8.6 million. Number 3 was the Keke Palmer comedy One of Them Days with $8 million. Number 4 was Sonic the Hedgehog 3 with $5.3 million. And number 5 was Moana 2 with $4.2 million. And then, of course, the new movies that are coming out this weekend are Dogman. That looked funny. Going to be a potentially decent-sized opening for a family kids film.
I think so.
Companion. Diva.
Yeah, I think Deva. Yeah.
Brave the Dark. And Violent One?
Valiant One. Can I just say this about Companion, Deva, Brave the Dark, and Valiant One? All of these are major films playing at my theater, right? And I'm sure your theater too. I haven't heard anything about any of them. Dogman is the only one that I saw trailers for or commercials for, and yet these are all big films playing in like on mass screens. Like,
Yeah.
where is the marketing?
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't tell you anything about any of those films other than
No.
Dogman. Like, I don't understand, man. I don't understand.
Yeah, nor do I, nor do I. But movies you can still go see potentially in theaters near you. A Complete Unknown, The Brutalist, Inheritance, Honora, and Baby Girl. And then, of course, a couple of the ones that I mentioned up there above. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I will definitely not be going to go see Dog Man, but I'll probably check it out when
Yeah,
it comes on streamer.
totally same.
Probably I won't be able to go back to the movies until Valentine's Day, that weekend for Brave New World. I don't think there's anything else coming out until that I really had that interest in. So it's gonna be interesting, man. Gonna catching up on those Oscar nominations, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm the same way. And there's too much good television coming out in between that gap. Like,
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And then of course the IMDb Pros top trending segment. The top trending movie is still Nosferatu, which is very surprising. I mean, it is a very conversation starter, I will say that. I mean, it is different from a lot of things that we've seen in recent years, so it only makes sense that a lot of people are still talking about it.
freaky
The top
sex.
trending, yeah, huh?
Freaky sex.
I
That
mean,
I think
yeah,
that's why people are still talking about freaky
yeah,
sex.
it is. It is freaky. That is for sure. It's
Anytime there's
wild to
anything
watch.
like that, people are gonna talk about it. They're gonna yeah, it's
Yeah,
just one of those
it is
things.
kind of crazy. The top trending TV show is Severance, which is everywhere right now. I definitely want to jump on this one as well because a lot of people are talking about it. And apparently, Apple TV has already made like $200 million off this thing.
Yeah, yeah,
So kudos to them.
yep.
And then the top trending star is Betty Gilpin. Who is Betty Gilpin, Dustin?
I'm looking up right now.
Let's see.
uh,
That's why you got to go back and check your IMDb Pro Bible.
yes. Oh. She's getting ready to be in the that new film that's coming about the female wrestlers and boxers and stuff.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. She's also an American Primeval. So that's why that's why she's rising up. But yeah, okay, that makes sense now. I'm like, who
For
is she?
sure.
But
You might have seen her in The Hunt, The
yes,
Tomorrow War, Isn't It Romantic, and Glow.
yep.
So she seems to be very, very in demand when it comes to female wrestlers. Go
Probably
her.
American Primeval is where she's like. I guess the name is growing, or because that's pretty
Yeah.
popular, right? Like,
For sure, for sure. Well, anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to episode 283 of Inside the Crazy Ant Farm. We got to thank you one more time for getting crazy with us on this episode and just having a little fun. It's been a freaking blast. But then, of course, be sure to spread the word by following us on social media. This podcast is at ITCAFpodcast on all social media. Our other podcast, our mental health one, Everything's OKP, is on Instagram, X, and Threads. So be sure to check us out there. New episode coming out next week. And then, of course, follow us both personally on social media. Myself at JLoganAustin and
at Crazy Ant CEO.
that's right. And you guys know you can subscribe to these podcasts anywhere you get your podcasts. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Stitcher, and so much more. And then, of course, be sure to head over to our YouTube channel, hit the like button below, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell for all the latest and greatest notifications coming out of Crazy Ant Media. And then, of course, go to our website, www.crazyantmedia.com, where you can start rocking the latest and greatest Crazy Ant Media gear. Got a little bit of something for a little bit of everyone, that is for sure. But man, oh man, what a great week. The beginning of the year has been a little slow for industry news, so to be kind of back on track with a little bit is definitely nice to see. But I mean, like you said a little bit earlier, there's so much good television right now that yeah, you really kind of don't need to go to the theaters.
It's true.
So I finished the original Dexter, finished New Blood, and I am on Dexter Original Sin. I was a little worried because of the recasting of for younger characters, but first episode was actually pretty good. They got a lot of the mannerisms correct, and I also feel like a lot of the actors look like the original characters, so that's freaking phenomenal. And then one you and Emily put me on to is Paradise. Watch the first episode of Paradise on Hulu, And that thing is absolutely wild, man. Sterling K. Brown, it's Dan Fogelman's project. So yeah, be sure to check that one out.
Oh, without doubt. Yeah, I'm loving that one. And I haven't started the new Dexter yet. I gotta jump on that. I'm a little behind on that. But I'm also loving Doc, which is outstanding. I was crying again in the latest one. Of course, the return of Elsbeth and Matlock was this week, so they're back and running. And then, of course, you know, Law and Order and Found, and just like there's so many good things. And guys, literally right around the corner, you've got fucking Reacher, Suits LA. Yeah, you've got so many new ones coming. And then Logan brought it up earlier. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, outstanding.
Great,
yeah,
yep.
There's just so much good stuff, man. It's great. And I'm watching old shit like Hacks that I had never seen before and loving that. So, you know, hey.
Exactly. We wanted to jump on that bandwagon because we were like, let's just see what it's like. I mean, people love it, and freaking we can see why. It's honestly very inspiring. It's very freaking good. But anyway, guys, thank you again so much. You all are amazing. But we got to praise to the Most High, the amazing one, the only, Oprah!